Hey Dub Nation, close your eyes for a second and picture this with me. Chase Center. Late May, bright lights, that nervous quiet right before the opening tip. And across from us, a so-called contender that thinks they've solved the Warriors because they're bigger, stronger, and younger. And then they look up and realize Golden State has finally answered back with a version of this team that still has Stephen Curry bending gravity, Jimmy Butler dragging games into dark alleys, Draymond Green running the brain of the whole operation, shooters everywhere, and a 7-foot sniper who turns every switch, every mismatch, every lazy closeout into punishment. A group that doesn't apologize for its age, doesn't apologize for its spending, and absolutely doesn't apologize for going all in one more time on a banner that would rewrite how this era is remembered. That's the picture that's starting to bother people around the league. And that's why I'm here with you today. One-on-one on Warriors News Fan Report, talking directly to you like always, because if you've been paying attention to how this front office has been moving, how this season has opened, and how fragile the line is between dangerous and truly terrifying, you know we are standing in one of those moments where a rumor stops, being a meme and quietly becomes a serious strategic conversation. We're only a handful of games into the year, but the story is already loud, even with the early bumps. This team has shown they can hang with real opponents when the main guys are on the floor. They've shown resilience with key absences, and they've shown that the identity is shifting back toward grown man basketball. Physical, competitive, desperate to make every possession count. At the same time, every single one of us can see the cracks that can't be ignored just because the vibes are good. Stephen Curry, still the heart of this franchise, still capable of nuclear nights, has to be protected like the basketball treasure he is. Jimmy Butler came in to bring that playoff cruelty and two-way edge, but he's deep into his 30s and already dealing with the kind of nagging issues that never really go away. Draymond Green is still the mind on defense, still orchestrating, still talking for 5 guys at once, but he's not guarding time. Al Horford is here to give veterans size and spacing, but he's on a managed plan. These are proud veterans carrying a ridiculous load in a conference packed with length, athleticism, and rim pressure. If you're honest with yourself, you feel the tension every time one of them takes a hard fall or grabs at something after a collision. You also see it in the numbers. Stretches where second chance points tilt against us, where physical front courts test our defensive glass, where we're asking undersized lineups to survive wars they shouldn't be fighting night after night. The young core helps. Jonathan Kuminga has finally started to look like the explosive, downhill, switchable nightmare we spent years projecting. Moses Moody shows flashes of being that reliable two-way wing with size. Will Richards steps onto an NBA floor like he's been here for 3 seasons already. Brandon Podziemski continues to play with that fearless, connective energy. Buddy Hield gives another shooting threat. There's enough here to stay competitive and to dream. But if you zoom out, and that's my job with you here, this roster as constructed still leaves us one injury, one bad matchup, one 7-game series away from staring at the same problem we've seen before, against the very best. You can't lean forever on small ball miracles and 35-plus minute nights from aging stars under this new CBA reality. That's where the discussion inside responsible front offices always shifts from who's fun to who actually solves problems. And if you look at the pattern from Golden State's decision-makers, you see a clear message. They don't mind discomfort, they don't mind criticism, and they don't mind paying if the player in question directly raises the championship ceiling. Trading for Butler said that. Letting Kevin Looney walk, as painful as that was emotionally, said that. Committing to Kuminga with real money said that. Navigating deep into second apron territory says that. This is not an office scared of big swings. It's an office that has to choose its swings precisely because the punishments in this CBA are brutal. So when serious people, cap guys, scouts, executives, not just timelines, start sketching out what kind of piece could justify the pain it would take to change the shape of this roster, they arrive at a very specific description, a legitimate 7-footer who can run, space the floor, punish switches, rebound his area, not kill your spacing for Butler, complement Draymond's playmaking instead of overlapping it, coexist with another big if needed, and most importantly, give this team a star-level bridge between the last years of Curry's greatness and whatever Golden State is supposed to be after. Not a nice rotation big, not a flyer on a backup, A legitimate top-tier offensive weapon with size. That description is not vague. You and I both know who that sounds like. And the reason his name keeps floating back into Warriors conversations, even after his new deal, is not because anyone thinks Utah woke up and decided to have a yard sale on their best player. It's because in this league, when you're that good and on that kind of contract, your name lives permanently in the realm of if the right offer ever shows up. So let's stop tiptoeing around it. The player who fits this need almost too perfectly is Lauri Markkanen. Now, I want to be crystal clear with you because this channel does not exist to dress up fiction as reporting. Markkanen is locked into a massive commitment with the Jazz, one that signals how highly they value him. There is no official deal, there is no agreement in place, there is no imminent move to announce to you tonight. But there is something else that always matters in these situations: fit, leverage, and timing. Utah's front office has to decide whether they're truly building a top-end contender around him in the short to medium term, or whether his peak value on that deal becomes the mechanism to speed up a retool. Golden State's front office has to decide whether they're comfortable letting this final Curry-Butler-Dre window ride purely on internal growth, small additions and health luck, or whether they're willing to explore the type of painful, complex offer that transforms their roster on both ends. When you put those two lines on the same chart, the need for a Markkanen type in San Francisco and the theoretical upside of a Markkanen package for a team like Utah, you get the exact overlap where rumors are born, where phone calls happen, and where frameworks get thrown on whiteboards even if 9 out of 10 of them die there. What would it realistically take, and why does it make more sense than fans want to admit at first reaction? Any serious construction starts with Jonathan Kuminga. I don't say that lightly, and I don't say it with any joy because I respect what he's starting to become here. And I know how much of this fan base sees him as the bridge to the future. But to get a player of Markkanen's caliber and control, you don't start with spare parts. You start with real blue-chip upside. Kuminga is that. Add to that at least one more young rotation piece. Moody, a recent pick, or an appealing shooter. And multiple first-rounders or swaps placed in years where the Warriors might not be contending anymore if this all goes wrong. Then you match salary using mid-tier contracts or shorter deals that give Utah flexibility. Is it extreme? Yes, but that's the point. You are not getting a prime all-star stretch forward who can average high-level scoring on elite efficiency, rebound, and fit next to your stars for anything less than an ouch package. And if you're the Warriors, you only entertain that ouch if the target solves so many layers of your problems that it feels irresponsible not to ask the question. That's where Markkanen lands. On the court, the synergy is almost disturbing. Picture Curry coming off a pick with Lauri popping beyond the arc, Butler lifting from the corner, Draymond making the read, and before the defense even understands what just happened, the geometry of the floor is broken in a way we simply haven't been able to force for the last 2 seasons. If they stay glued to Steph like they have to, refusing to help off the greatest shooter of all time, Lauri is standing there as a 7-footer with a clean, balanced catch, high release, no panic, punishing that split second of indecision with a 3 that feels like a layup. If they decide to overreact to Lauri's pop and send an extra body up, Butler isn't dealing with a wall anymore. He's attacking a tilted floor with a single strong side helper and a rotating big who has no chance of sliding back into position in time. If some desperate coach thinks switching a smaller wing or guard onto Markkanen is the answer, he goes straight to the mid-post, not in slow, old-school isolations that kill the offense, but in quick seals, deep catches and face-ups where 1 or 2 efficient dribbles turn into a foul, a jump hook or a kick-out 3 when the double finally comes too late. You can run 5 out with him as your nominal 5 without sacrificing size, which means Curry suddenly has driving lanes again even at this stage of his career, Butler gets more room to live in the mid-range, and every off-ball cut becomes a real threat. Because the help defender is glued to a shooter, he can't leave. Or you slide Lauri next to a more traditional big for certain matchups. And unlike so many fake Twin Towers experiments, your spacing doesn't die, because he's comfortable being 30 feet from the rim and still impacting the game. In transition, he runs lanes like a wing, fills the trailer spot for those rhythm threes that break opponents' backs, and forces opposing bigs into decisions they hate. Sprint back to the paint and concede the shot, Or chase him out to the perimeter and open a runway for Steph, Butler, or a cutting Kuminga. In half-court sets, he doesn't need the ball pounded into the floor for 15 seconds to be effective. He's low maintenance, intelligent, plays off advantages others create, but he's dangerous enough that ignoring him is never an option. That's exactly what makes this idea so powerful for us. He amplifies our stars without suffocating them. Now really lock in with me and stack that on top of everything else we already do well. Think about our classic split actions, the stuff that has been in the Warriors' DNA for a decade. Put Markkanen as the screener in those looks. Curry gives it up, Lauri sets that little pin in, slips out, flares, and suddenly you've got two elite shooters on opposite sides of the floor with a defense scrambling to decide which one they'd rather die by. Draymond with the ball in the high post, reading three options at once. A cut from Butler, a handoff to Steph, a pop from Lauri. You can't switch everything because if you put a guard on Lauri, he'll shoot over him. You can't trap everything because Draymond and Lauri both see the next pass before you rotate. The subtlety here is that Lauri isn't just a stretch four in the lazy sense. He's a pressure point in modern spacing. He gives you a screener that defense is actually fear-popping, not just someone standing outside as a decoy. He drags bigs away from the rim. He opens driving lanes without demanding a usage rate that would poison the hierarchy. And when the playoff whistle tightens up, when games slow down and you're not getting 8 easy points off broken coverage, having a 7-footer who can get you a clean shot out of organized offense is the difference between surviving a bad shooting night and going home. Defensively, I'm not here to sell a fairy tale and pretend he turns you into a 2004 Pistons wall. That's not what this is, but he does shift the floor in ways that matter. His size alone changes the shot profile. Instead of closing games with 3 or 4 guys under 6'7" and asking them to rebound against bigger front lines, you've got an actual 7-footer who can contest at the arc and still be close enough to bother drives, who can put a body on bigger wings, who can close out under control without giving up straight-line blow-bys. His rebounding presence, even if he's not a historic monster on the glass, immediately upgrades a lot of the patchwork solutions we've been forced into. No more asking undersized bigs to do everything. No more living and dying entirely on gang rebounding discipline. You put Lauri next to Draymond, and suddenly Draymond can go back to being the free safety genius more often. Flying around, stunting, switching, barking out coverages, instead of spending every possession wrestling with size disadvantages. You buy Horford the freedom to play smarter, shorter bursts where his IQ and positioning shine instead of exposing his legs. You insulate lineups that feature Curry, Butler, and shooters by giving them a backline that isn't purely theoretical. This is where his profile hits different. He may not be Defensive Player of the Year material, but he's big, mobile enough, and smart enough not to be hunted off the floor. And that's already a major upgrade over we'll see which small ball 5 has it tonight. And maybe the biggest piece from our side, the one I keep circling back to when I look at the long-term picture, he is at an age and under a trajectory where, if this move hits, you're not just renting a name for one more April run, slapping a superstar logo onto a closing window. You're potentially handing the keys of your next competitive phase to a player who is tailor-made for where basketball is going, not where it's been. A 7-footer who shoots, moves, and thinks the game at a high level in a system that maximizes shooting, movement, and IQ is not a luxury. It's a foundation piece. You're talking about a scenario where the transition from Curry's team to what comes after doesn't feel like falling off a cliff, but like sliding into a new identity that still looks like Warriors basketball, spacing, pace, reads, unselfishness. With Lauri as a central pillar instead of trying to reinvent yourself from scratch with no star in place. That is exactly why the basketball argument is not just strong. It's dangerously persuasive. But this is Warriors News Fan Report, and I owe you the honest layer underneath the dream. The cost is real, and if we're going to entertain this seriously, we talk about it like adults. You don't just lose a young player you like. You lose Jonathan Kuminga, or someone of that level, at the very moment he starts to validate your patience. You lose the flexibility of multiple future firsts that could become lifelines if injuries hit, or if the gamble doesn't land the way you hoped. You take on even more long-term money in a system where second apron restrictions punish every misstep, fewer tools to improve around the margins, harsher constraints on flipping contracts. limited flexibility and buying your way out of mistakes. You risk your depth. You risk hard choices down the roster, moving off guys who've bought in and helped you win so you can afford the new core. You risk being locked into a group that might be absolutely terrifying when healthy, but frighteningly fragile if even one or two pieces slip physically or mentally. You risk shipping out Kuminga right as he becomes the violent, two-way, switchable forward other teams spend years begging to find. This isn't 2K where you hit force trade and simulate to a ring. This is a live bet on how long Curry can maintain this unique gravitational pull, how much Butler has left when the games start to hurt, how long Draymond can quarterback an elite defense, how adaptable the system is under new pressure, and whether Mark Cannon is truly that good in your jersey, on your stage, under your expectations, with your standards attached to that contract and that logo. I'll tell you where I lean after running through the cap math, the age curves, and the brutality of the West. I lean toward aggression, as long as it's disciplined and only if the target is truly elite and truly available. In my eyes, Markkanen sits in that narrow, uncomfortable category of players who justify real sacrifice. Not because of hype, but because the fit. The age and the upside all align with what this franchise says it wants to be. Until there's something concrete, we treat it how responsible people should. As a high-level rumor scenario built on rational factors, not a fake headline thrown in your face to chase clicks. And you can trust that every time a possibility like this gains weight, whether it ends up being Lauri or another major piece that actually moves the needle, I'll be right here on Warriors News Fan Report, breaking down what's real, what's noise, and what it means for our shot at one more banner. So stay close, stay loud in the comments, stay locked in with us, and we'll navigate this window together like the informed. Demanding fan base this dynasty has earned.